doing the physical therapy, then you go into the Pilates and get everything corrected. Also, physical therapy only wants to return you to your normal range of motion. So normal leg extension is 90 degrees, which means if you're standing up and you raise your leg straight out in front of you at a 90-degree angle from standing, that's considered normal. Mm-hmm. In fact, most physical therapy treatments only recover you in PT to 80% of what your normal range of motion is. So think about that. I'm a dancer. I've got a hip injury. You're going to recover me to 80% of what normal is. Well, if that's normal, 80% of normal is that. And then you think about where a dancer is supposed to be. So you can see that there was a slight difference between returning on stage at this and returning on stage here. So to that end, we would go into Pilates, and all of the exercises would help get us back to what our normal range of motion would be, which would be all of that extension and stuff. What impressed me the most about being at the Center for Dance Medicine was that my orthopedist would go in and work with my physical therapist, but with my Pilates instructor as well. So he would come in, and he was versed in the French language of dance and could speak in dance terminology with my Pilates instructors. And my Pilates instructors were versed in the Latin language of medicine, and they could speak back to him in Latin. So he was speaking in ballet French, and they were speaking in medical Latin, and I have no idea what they were saying, but I walked out and I felt great every single time. I felt so much better. And I said, you know, this is what I want to do when I grow up. And so many years later, after I moved to New York, and actually I had a back injury that ended my dance career, I said, well, maybe now it's time to do the Pilates studio. So
there you are.
There I am.
You're right about the physical therapy, because when I had my knee surgery and so many complications with my knee, Marianne Russo, who is one of the local physical therapists who I love, got me to the point where she says, okay, now you can go and see Marilyn and you can continue the Pilates because this is better. Let's talk about how, when somebody walks in, because I already know this because you've done this with me, but so that the audience knows, I walk in off the street and I tell you, okay, my knee is bad, I had this. Go over how you evaluate everyone, because it's really impressive and it's very thorough, and I think it's an important thing for the audience to realize that it's not just like going to a gym where they say, okay, use this machine or do this. You actually know the human body, the musculature, and what's not working. As a matter of fact, you were the one who discovered that I had like no muscle strength on my quads, which started the whole knee thing.
yes, which kind of went really bad, but now got much better. Well, the first thing I do when someone comes in and they say that they have some kind of issue and their doctor said to, actually if their doctor recommended it, it's fine. A lot of times what happens, someone comes, oh, a friend told me I should do this, and I've got this issue or that issue. The very first thing I always say is, have you been seen by a doctor? Okay, I am not a treating physician. I do not diagnose in any way. I simply provide what's called orthopedic post-rehabilitation if it's for a medical issue, or strengthening exercises, what's considered neuromuscular re-education, if it's prior to any kind of an issue developing, but maybe you had a car accident many years ago, and ever since then you just have felt out of whack, okay? I will come in and re-educate you. But in terms of the evaluation, if it's something where you either have doctor's clearance or you've had an MRI, you're post-PT, or you're just trying to recondition, I do a full postural analysis to start with. And what that does is it tells me, okay, what do you do during the day? Do you walk? Do you run? Do you sit? Do you, how are you standing? How are you behaving? Like, what's going on with your body? We develop we develop ways of sitting and standing that affect our posture, and we don't realize it.
Now I feel like sitting straight.
So I told you before we started, I told her I was going to use her as an example. So I'm going to use an example now. One of the things that we do that can really affect how our posture is, especially for women, but everyone is guilty of this in some way, is we sit, like this. And 90% of the time we sit and we have the same leg cross. So I'm crossing my right leg right now. And what that does is it means that when I stand up, my right hip is going to be hiked up higher than my left one. And the more we do that, we're just overstretching all of the muscles on this side. And so that's going to throw our posture completely out. And thank you. So if you think about, okay, well, so I did this for an hour, big deal, right? And then you've got a desk job or you sit at the office and you're like, okay, so I do it 8 hours a day, big deal. I do it 8 hours a day. I do it 5 days a week.
Right.
I've been doing this for the past 10 years. So imagine what's happened. One way I like to talk about it is think about your muscles as rubber bands. So if you took a rubber band and you started pulling on it and you let go of it quickly, boom, it'd snap right back. If you sat there and you held it for a little while, it might not snap back as quick. And if you pulled that rubber band and just left it there and walked away and came back 10 years later,
right,
with every now and then going, you still there? There's nothing to it. And we all know that. I mean, when you pull a pair of shorts out of the closet that you haven't worn in a while,
right.
the elastic is just gone. There's no elasticity into it anymore. Our muscles are the same way. They have to be worked, and they have to be worked in the correct range of motion in order to maintain that elasticity. Additionally, the musculature has to be balanced. So if we don't have the right amount of strength, so here, if I'm sitting like this, then my hip is all completely out. So when I stand up, these muscles aren't as strong because I've overstretched them right now.
right.
They're not as strong as the ones on this side. Now these muscles on this side, now they're getting really short and tight. And so I've got this side that's all kind of wonky and this side that's like, and then you start walking and you're like, I don't know, I
I'm
just
stiff.
don't feel right. Right, exactly. And so what ends up happening is, then you get knee, foot issues, back pain, all that kind of stuff. So I go back and I do a postural analysis and I'd be like, okay, your right shoulder's high, your left hip is high, your right knee is turned in, your left knee is turned out, your feet are everted and supinated, you've got Westchester driving head, which is my favorite. Everybody who walks in the studio. The one thing I would tell every single person, especially moms, if you're out there and you're driving like crazy, getting the carpools, getting to school,
Lift
getting
up
the
your
kids.
seat.
Well, lift up the seat is one, but put your head right here against the headrest. Keep it there, because otherwise you're going to get Westchester driving head, okay? And why that's a bad thing is, especially for women, as we get older, we're prone to
Right.
getting osteopenia and osteoporosis. If you've already put your neck in this position, it's really very quick for you to get into that old dowager's hump. So the best thing, quickest little tip that you can have to get your posture realigned in terms of from your waist up is put your head against the headrest and try and keep it there and don't drive totally forward. So I'll look at all of these things. I'll turn sideways. I'll say you've got Westchester driving head. You've got, you may have a flat back. You may be what's called kyphotic lordotic, which is you're extremely curved on the top and then you're extremely curved on the bottom. So basically, if you think about what our spine is supposed to look like, if you think of the letter S, okay, we've got the letter S. If you took both ends of the S and you simply pulled, that's basically what your spine looks like, okay? It's an elongated S. If you're kyphotic lordotic, we've squashed it, okay? So imagine trying to stand like that, where you're really got these big curves. You can have military posture, which a lot of men come in, and that's where you're sticking your chest out, but you're actually really compressing your low back muscles. You can be sway back. I mean, there's all, which is kind of like the model walk, where your hips are 10 feet in front of your chest. So everyone's going to have all these different postures. The way your feet, I'm a huge thing on feet, huge on feet. It is amazing to me how many people walk around with their feet like all knotted up like this. No tension anywhere else in their body, and their feet are like these little claws. So that's the first thing I'm like, relax your toes. And all of a sudden they're like, ooh, I feel my hamstrings, I feel my glutes. And I'm like, yeah, because your feet aren't holding on for dear life anymore. So I assess all of this stuff, and then based on that, I sit there and I'm like, okay, this is what we're gonna do. This is how we're gonna start with you. And it literally can be as basic as relearning how to breathe. A lot of people have no idea